So I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for coming back on, seems like kind of gloomy, but typical Madison summer uncertainty. Today we've got Jeff Leismer from VibeTech presenting. I'm not even sure it's worth introducing myself. I'm Drew Corson, but I hope you know that, or else I've been talking either too quickly or very softly for the last 2 years. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Derek's back there with Field 59, always providing the live stream and recording on our YouTube channel. Thanks to Old National Bank for providing the coffee from Crescendo. Thanks a lot, Andy. And thank you to the library. I don't think anyone from the library is here, but we always hope that they can feel our gratitude. It's great having this space they provided for free, and this has been a great opportunity. So we're going to start off with introductions, and then I'll hand it over to Jeff. So,
me?
Go, Rachel.
Wow! I get to be first today. I'm Rachel Wilberding. I'm with Healthy Community Kitchen.
I'm Alex Coffin with Dunamis LLC.
Amanda Schwegler. I'm just here.
I'm Dennis Barnum with Merlin Mentors, and I'll mention the Badger Startup Summit again and pitch and replay at the end of it. Drew is Million Cups is running the Ven Fair in the middle. But if you want to pitch your idea and get immediate feedback with 5 different pitches, I recommend you check out badgerstartup.com and sign up. We're starting to fill up fast.
I'm Tamara Songeroff, and I run a nonprofit research and education company around lighting.
Dominic DeMarco, entrepreneur in residence with QBE International Insurance Company.
Scott Cole with Third Space.
Derek Gebler with Field 59. Just a note, last week was our 100th episode that was recorded and streamed. So 100, so this is 101. That's like almost 100 hours of pure and entrepreneurial entertainment or something like that. But so check out the YouTube channel and celebrate, right?
You guys didn't have any kid fest? We were all just going to spit. Swab and then get
All right.
Hi, maybe for 102.
All right, counting on it.
Yeah, Ed Morgan. I'm with VibeTech, and just a note, Derek and I go back a ways. He's from Sheboygan originally. Haven't seen him in many years, and here we're walking up to the library, and he comes up to me and said, "I know you from someplace." Well, his dad, played basketball with me in high school, so it's a small world.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ed in, it's got to be 30
years. Yeah,
something like that. So
I must have a memorable face.
All right. Howdy, y'all. Christopher Patterson. I'm CEO of Medisoft Solutions. We provide software development for pre-Series A tech startups.
Angie Allen. I'm marketing and operations at Nova One Networks.
Hi, I'm Steve Slatton. I'm a business and technical professional and here networking.
Hi, Jacek Milewski. This is my first time here. I'm a principal at Biomass Solution. We do ag waste to energy project development all over North America.
It's my invite to this gig.
Gotta bring people in.
Anaya Brown from Economic Development.
Jamaria Martin, intern with Economic Development.
Jeff Legas, former business owner, looking for my next opportunity.
I'm DP Knudten with Collaborator Creative. I collaborate creatively with individuals and companies on everything from custom writing to full-on nonfiction branding.
My name is Trezzy. I'm a software consultant helping engineering teams with culture and process solutions. I also am working on the 100 State of Mind podcast, trying to capture the entrepreneurial spirit through conversation. So if you're interested in being on a podcast, you should. I'm right here.
Hi, I'm Shannon Flash. I'm a project manager at WPS.
Hi, I'm Julianne Zaleski from the Madison Club.
Hi, my name's Diana Pastrana, and I'm with M&M Office Interiors.
I'm Andrew Gonzalez from Old National Bank.
Great. All right. Well, again, I'm Jeff Lismer with VibeTech. VibeTech is a company that I started to help astronauts stay strong in space. So back in 2001, when I was a master's student in biomedical engineering at Michigan Tech, I had an advisor that had worked with astronauts coming back from space. And let me just turn this on real quick if I can find the on button.
You don't need it.
Oh. No, okay, good. All right, thank you. But my advisor relayed all of the problems the astronauts had physiologically from a lack of weight bearing on their bodies. And he looked to me as an engineer to solve those problems. So I had come up with a solution for cardiovascular deconditioning to prevent astronauts from fainting when they come back from space. Basically, the veins need a workout, so I was able to come up with a machine that exercised the veins. I stuck around and did a master's project to solve the bone loss problem for astronauts. Does anybody know how much bone mass an astronaut loses in a single year in space? Any guesses?
Is it like a percentage or is it a weight?
12%.
So, yep, higher than that, so it's 20%.
Wow.
So there's a big need. That's one of the reasons why we can't do long-duration space flight safely. So I set out to try and solve that problem. Looking at pharmaceutical options, realizing there are a lot of different issues associated with the use of pharmaceuticals. They usually alter your body's ability to do a certain function in order to reap benefits in a different area that function either prevented or then what they did enhanced it. So I found that the bone loss drugs were actually something that shouldn't be used for a very long period of time. And sure enough, a few years later, research started coming out saying, yeah, Fosamax, you'll break your bones. You're more likely to break your bones if you stay on them for a long period of time. So I'm glad I set off in the trajectory that I did. And I looked at what happens mechanically with our bodies while we're here on Earth and we're working out and our bodies are maintaining themselves, and how does that differ from up in space? Well, NASA had researched what happens when you just apply compression to the legs. Compression alone did not keep the bones strong. You need a dynamic stimulus. So I started looking at doing dynamic loading, so impact from walking and running. Well, if you have an astronaut that's up in space and they're already at a 20% deficit in their bone mass, or if you take somebody here on Earth that has already had traumatic bone loss and they've got fully blown osteoporosis, you don't want to impact their bones. I was already at that time thinking about domestic applications, terrestrial applications here on Earth for a technology. So I ended up coming up with a solution to reduce the impact but increase the frequency, mechanical vibrations, imparting those into the body, loading through the feet in a similar way to what loading you receive during weight-bearing physical activity. And looking at what frequency of vibration to use, I mimicked the muscle fiber firing frequency for the fast twitch muscle fibers. So when you contract your muscles are vibrating. The fast twitch muscle fibers are responsible for strength and posture. So by applying a vibration at that same frequency, realizing that older adults lose that frequency content, and that might be the reason for bone loss, I decided to apply it. Well, I built my first prototype and applied 40 pounds of load from my knee to my heel and had a dishwasher motor in there with a cam that I'd rigged up, vibrating at that rate frequency, just to see what it felt like for 10 minutes, knowing my bones were going to take a good year to adapt. Well, when I went to stand up, I just about fell over. My leg muscles were so fatigued throughout my entire legs, my hamstrings, my glutes. And I said, haha, I need to get a patent on this, and I need to start a company. So that started my adventure here. But realizing that astronauts aren't the only ones that can benefit, we have a relatively small number of astronauts out there. What can I do to make this technology available to absolutely everybody that needs it? So everybody atrophies. As we look at this diagram here, we show strength and mobility level on the vertical side. Across here is age. So as we age, your strength and mobility goes downhill. You go from being able to maintain yourself to requiring assistance from walkers or therapists to be able to help you out with your day-to-day activities, to once you get down far enough, you rely on people and technologies in order to go about your daily activity. So you look at rehabilitation equipment that's out there, and there are lots of things available for people to stand on. There are even stand-up vibration platforms that people work out on against their body weight that operate in a similar frequency range to what I'm applying. And there are a number of differences between what they're doing and what I'm doing, but those are really aimed at this maintenance group, maybe getting into the assist group. But nobody has developed anything for people that cannot exercise, that are too weak and frail to be able to stand and walk on their own. And that's what I set out to do. I said, look, I've got this effective technology. I need to make sure it's safe, and I need to make sure it's accessible for the populations that can benefit the most. So looking at how do I make this technology available to the people that need it the most, well, naturally I go to, well, where is the greatest concentration of people with the greatest needs? Well, nursing homes. You've got people that really the loved ones send them there, and that's where they go and that's where they die, and that's what is expected. I want to change that perception. I want people to go to a nursing home to go there and get better. And VibeTech has the technology that provides the first shot at allowing for that to happen. Because we are providing exercise to people that need it the most. If you've suffered from an injury, you have an instantaneous decline in your strength and mobility. You hope to recover and get back on your normal track. Most of the time you don't fully regain that and you're at a reduced track. Well, what VibeTech is aiming to do is to get that all the way back up and to actually change the slope of this line. We want people to lead longer, healthier lives where they've got greater strength and mobility. Exercise is the best medicine, but not everybody can exercise. So that's what we're here to do. I'd mentioned trying to make it so that we have a technology that's not only effective, but it's safe. The first addition to my clinical advisory board for VibeTech was Danny Riley out of the, where is he from? Medical College of Wisconsin, sorry. So Danny Riley is a great guy. He actually was the former chair of the American Gravitational and Space Biology Consortium. He, for 40 years, has been sending astronauts up into space, convincing astronauts to let him do muscle biopsies. He's also been, for 20 years, doing research on the negative effects of vibration on the human body. So I thought, why not go to the person that knows the most about the damage that vibrations could cause to make sure we do this safely. And he did a great job at honing me in to the right frequencies to use and how to do this safely. Then we go to Marty Hinman, who was the former chair of the accreditation board for all physical therapy schools across the US. She does a lot of research with geriatric patients. She really helped to figure out how to make this an accessible product. And the rest of the team has been helping out with clinical research, with ideas. So it's top-notch individuals that have been chairs or presidents of national or international organizations that are very relevant to what VibeTech's doing. So we've been able to recruit and attract the top talent across the nation, and many of whom reside right here in the state. So we have a lot of resources around us. So VibeTech, you can see up here a picture of our technology. So this is our first generation product in the first two pictures. You can see it's a seated device, swivel seat for easy access from a wheelchair. Kick your feet up against this foot plate and it moves back and forth. And it reacts to foot pressure. So you press on it and it moves back. You relax your legs and it comes towards you. And it's vibrating the whole time at frequencies that then are causing the muscles to contract involuntarily. This is our new product, which actually I'm waiting on parts to arrive by mail in the next 2 days here, so we can finalize our first production system for our second generation product, where we're actually able to do strength measurements and range of motion assessments on patients right before treatment. We do a 10-minute treatment with them, and right after we can assess them again. Now, we're actually seeing gains in strength on average of 21% just from a 10-minute treatment because of the increased muscle activation throughout the lower extremities and even into the low back. We're finding gains of 39% on average in range of motion. And this is incredible for a technology to be able to both assess and treat. And then we took it further, and we now have the treatments that rely on the assessment data. So we're not ever going to put somebody past the range of motion that the legs can comfortably and safely handle. We're not going to put a load on their legs greater than they can handle. For patients that are low functioning, we have it so that it's a passive range of motion exercise. So let's just say you had a knee replaced, and it hurts when you get up to a certain point and your leg becomes very stiff. Well, our goal is to get the leg to work through its comfortable range of motion comfortably. And then as the patient gets better, we can turn it over to active exercises where they can do leg presses against the system. So it's a pretty neat technology. The assessments, that data pours right in, and it automatically suggests to the therapist what treatment level to provide. In a nursing home, one day a resident might be able to push with 100 pounds. The next day, their arthritis is acting up and they can only push with 20 pounds. Well, this device automatically doses for that patient then. So very smart technology. We've got 4 issued patents. 3 of them we are expecting allowances on in the next 2 months in addition to those. So there are 9 additional pending patents. So 13 in all, international. So we're trying to do our best to make sure we protect this technology. Original funding came from NASA with a grant from the Michigan Space Grant Consortium. So we're actually in the 2015 NASA spin-off book. And so we do have our eye on the future of doing space-related research. But first, we're doing the work here, right here on Earth. And we're looking at now working with the Wisconsin Space Grant Consortium and the universities that are involved with that to do some proposals to do parabolic flight testing aboard the Vomit Comet, which is a precursor to getting a product on the International Space Station. So there's some fun stuff that we'll be working on here. We got funded by the National Institute on Aging to do our preliminary trials. We are FDA registered. It's a Class 1 exempt product, which is the lowest regulatory hurdle. So we have 2 different listings that allow for us to make medical claims in the U.S. pertaining to muscle strength and function improvements as well as to pain relief. The pain relief, actually 86% of patients that have used our product have a clinically significant reduction in pain from a 10-minute treatment. So that can be from arthritis, from a bone fracture, hip pain, low back pain. We're having very significant reductions in pain naturally. All we're doing is exercising the body for patients that can't exercise completely on their own. And over the last 3 years, we've done thousands of treatments with our product in nursing homes and hospitals, and all of them have been successful, reimbursable, so it's something that can actually make money for a facility. We're also looking to set the standards. I mean, this is bigger than just VibeTech. I mentioned the vibrating platforms that people stand on and perform exercises against their body weight. The majority of those that are out on the market, you might see them at the gym. There are even some therapy centers that have them. But the vibration plate vibrates at greater than 1 G of acceleration. Anything over 1 G of acceleration, as the foot plate lifts up, the body's going to come off no matter how heavy you are. So you might have a nice smooth ride landing back on it, or you might impact into it. Each vibration oscillation is different, so the output of the machine doesn't match the input to the body. So it's not the ideal way to go. We're trying to influence the field by helping establish the standards to be able to make sure that this field does everything correctly. This is a new rehab technology that has the potential to change rehabilitation across the globe, exercise across the globe. Most people here, everyone here looks fit and able to do things. But we're all less active now than we used to be. Our bodies are in a state of atrophy. Everybody can benefit from a technology like this. It's a matter of figuring out the best way to deploy it to individuals so they can get access. VibeTech right now is focused on the institutional markets and the rehab space. So therapy gyms and hospitals, nursing homes, sports medicine clinics, even pediatrics. This is my 11-year-old son here drinking coffee. Actually, it's mostly creamer, a little coffee, but using the product. And so we can even fit small children in the equipment. So we've designed it in a way that accommodates the overwhelming majority of the population. And that's what we're heading to the market with right now, is this second generation product that can do not only the assessments and treatments, but it can also track patient progress over time. One of the most important things to insurance providers and Medicare, in order to provide reimbursements to a care provider for therapy services, they not only have to justify the treatments they're providing, but they have to see the patient outcomes, and they want to know what the cost of care is for treatment of each patient based on their needs. Well, we're able to track all of that right with our product and attribute the cost of care as well as the benefits directly to our machine, as well as capturing over time the accumulation of all therapies that a patient's receiving. We can see what those benefits are. So we're providing services now to the rehabilitation communities to be able to help them have the information they need to convey to the payers out there, Medicare and insurance companies, to make sure that they keep their contracts and keep their money rolling in so they can stay in existence. Now, I was going to play a video. I didn't have any volume on it, so that's all right, because we do have the quote, if you can read that. This is one of the nursing home administrators that has had our product for the longest. And she anticipates that our product's going to be in every single nursing home across the country within the next 10 years. She sees it, she realizes the benefits. Some of her therapy staff realize the benefits. If you talk to a therapist, a therapy director, they're going to let you know that the rehab products out there are typically only used maybe on 30% of the patients that come into a therapy gym at max. Well, the Jewish Home, Ovation Jewish Home in Milwaukee, is actually putting about 90% of their caseload on our device. They've got patients lining up waiting to use the equipment because it makes them feel so good. When a patient comes down there that's agitated, and there are some cranky people in nursing homes, so if they come down and somebody is cranky, the first thing the therapy staff will do is put them on our equipment. It calms them down right away. If they have pain and wouldn't otherwise be able to go through therapy, they come down and use our equipment first to reduce the pain. That allows for them to tolerate all of the other therapy that they need to get better quicker. So we've had some tremendous success with that. And just looking at some of the results, after about 30 treatments, patients tend to gain an increase in strength by being able to push about 50 pounds harder. We see improvements in foot sensation, in balance. We have the pain relief I mentioned there. We've even had patients with urinary incontinence have dramatic reductions because of the strengthening of the pelvic floor muscles. So delivering the vibrations up through the feet, you're actually stimulating the pelvic floor muscles and causing them to contract and strengthen. So we're having tremendous success all across the board. We've had some great success. I was training a therapy department in Kentucky at a hospital in their skilled nursing unit how to use the equipment. They brought in a patient that was on a feeding tube, a very frail woman, used the walker to get over to the equipment. Eyes were kind of floating all over. She definitely was not with it. Well, sit her down, put her feet on the foot plate, and it puts just 15 pounds of pressure on her legs and starts vibrating. All of a sudden her eyes come into focus and she looks right up at me. She says, "That feels so good." And I carried on a 10-minute conversation with her. She was extremely lucid, and the therapy staff was highly impressed that somebody that was not coherent, not with it, was able to come back to just by feeling the natural stimuli that she would have received if she was standing up and walking and doing those things. but she couldn't do that on her own. So again, we're just using what nature does, and we figured out what those active ingredients are of weight-bearing physical activity that are responsible for the health benefits, and we figured out how to deliver that safely and how to dose it safely so it's effective in the greatest populations of need. So I will stop right there, and I will, I guess, first off, before I officially stop, I will move on to a slide. So if you do want to write down my contact info, you can do that. I do have business cards as well. But what we're doing next, we are trying to unveil our new product. We're not just selling a product, we're providing all of the services that go along with it, from the customized patient tracking and reporting to the payers of the world, and being able to provide constant updates and on hardware and software. We actually have gamified our rehabilitation device. We have 3 rehab games built in right now. One is a passive range of motion exercise. We have another one that is heightened eccentric loading. So when you're doing leg presses, it's harder, more challenging on the way back, and you have to maintain the target load level, and you're scored based on your ability to maintain that. We also have another level that allows for you to simulate going from standing to seated and seated to standing positions repeatedly. So we have fairly rudimentary software built in to do that right now. So one of the things that we're looking to do is provide those continual updates to the software to make it more engaging, more exciting. So if we can have a virtual person on the touchscreen, right there in view of the person who's using the equipment, who's in a chair, and as they push out on the foot plate, they see this person standing up. As they let the foot plate come back, they come towards. Doing things like that, our machine allows for it. We have the sensors, we have all of the information coming in. We don't have the developers that are actively working on that right now. So that's an active area that if anybody has ideas, we sponsor senior design projects at several of the University of Wisconsin system schools. If there are seniors at any university that you're aware of, or even master's or PhD students that want to engage with a company like VibeTech, I think that would be a great place for somebody to get some experience. But also we need then that commercial experience for people that can formalize what's developed by students and put that into a complete package. So that's one of the areas of interest for us. We are getting our first couple of products placed, and we'll be looking to raise some capital in the near future as well. So that's another area that we're looking for partners that can assist with some of the financing needs that we have. And I think this is a great opportunity. I'm rewarded every day I go into a therapy department and hear the stories that are being told by the patients, by the therapy staff. I've even had loved ones come in. A daughter of a woman in a nursing home ran up to me one day and said, "I just had to let you know that my mom has been at this facility for over a year with no benefit. She's been coming to therapy just about every day. In the last week, she's been using your equipment. And after just 3 treatments, she is now not in pain, she's not stiff, she can actually get up and do things." So this woman felt so compelled that she actually had to come from her home, knew I was up there, and was able to then convey that information to me. So every day I hear these great stories of how successful the product's been. So that's what keeps me moving forward, keeps this business going there. So with that, I will turn it over to questions. Yes?
I kind of have 2 questions, but on that note, if that daughter came up to you and said, like, that literally the only benefit of being in a nursing home is that, what's it going to take to just put that on the market for consumers as opposed to just these businesses? Because obviously, like, my mom has already planned my basement to be her future home, and like, I mean, maybe I don't want this machine so I can put her in a home, but like, if this is going to change
No,
that.
that is the flip side of things. Yeah, not everyone wants their loved ones to come home.
No, but so is there like a plan to roll it out to
Yes, so
Or is that just for?
so we partook in the governor's business plan competition, and we got second place for the advanced manufacturing category for presenting the business case for our personal use product. I've built a couple of prototypes. My mom has kidney cancer. She just had her kidney and a large tumor removed just over 2 months ago. And so she wasn't very mobile right after that, so I built one for her. And this is what I consider to be an active ottoman. It's portable, you put it in front of your favorite chair, and you put your feet on it, and you are able to push it back. And it's actually just rocking back and forth. And so we weight the system to be able to allow for sufficient loading through the legs to help transmit the vibrations up to the hips and the low back. But it's not such a great load that people are exhausted when they're done with it. So you can sit there for a full movie and be doing leg presses or just holding your leg still against this vibrating foot plate. And so we do have that in the works. My next meeting is with a furniture artist here in Madison that I met in Sheboygan last year at the art festival to make a beautiful piece of furniture that people actually want to keep in their living room. Because that's a critical component, is this actually has to look good. If the whole purpose is to make exercise unavoidable, we want the product to be where people are and where they spend the most time sitting. So if that's in the living room, if that's in the kitchen, wherever it may be, we want this to be a device, a system that looks good where it's at. Yes?
Okay, so just piggybacking on that, so when do we get like the office version of this? Because like if sitting at our desks is killing us. I mean,
Is this more of an exercise for like healthy people?
Yeah, and
Because like that would be a dream. That's all I can
one of the
think.
discussions that we had is, do we get involved with insurance companies that are giving large employers discounts for having employee health and wellness programs? And having this in an office complex would be fantastic. So even the higher end institutional version, where you could actually get credit from the health insurance provider for getting your workout in on this device. Now the great thing is, if you're an employer, you've got people that are texting, they're on Facebook, they're doing these things during the office hours. Well, what if you allowed them to do that while they were getting a workout? Because the workout is so simple in the way it's provided that you can work and do these other tasks. So you get all of these benefits right here in just a very abbreviated period of time.
It's like a sit-to-stand desk without standing.
Right.
Yeah. It's awesome.
All these things, I think, indicate a lot of enthusiasm. People are getting it, the science is there, that's cool, all that stuff. I want to back up a little bit to what I would consider kind of a first principle thing. You've got the slope. Love that slope because that's exactly right. Below the slope is therapy, above it is workout. Are you targeting that workout specifically? And by the way, all these consumer things, that relies on scale, being able to get tons of these made and out and all that stuff. If you have a smaller universe of physical therapists, OTs, and physical trainers, workout trainers, it's easier to market to those guys, which then validate the product so that you can then later go to consumer.
And that's part of the whole development process. When this was started, I had no idea that vibrations were going to have any muscular benefit. All I knew was I was replicating the signals that they were providing to the body. So this is a whole evolutionary process here. So we developed the VibeTech 1, the institutional product, with the fancy robotics, sensors, motors, controllers, and all of that to interface with each other. We needed a very versatile product that had a lot of adjustability, so we could hone in on what parameters were most important. Now, after doing years of research, it was 2010 when we came up with the first funding and built our first prototype. 2011 is when we did our first real clinical testing. So over the years, the clinical testing has shown us just exactly what are those active ingredients of weight-bearing physical activity and what dose of each parameter is important. And that's enabled me to come up with the simplest, lowest cost product for the home use market now. So as part of that evolutionary process, going from this high-end institutional rehab device to a home use product works. Same principle, having all of the science behind it, really helps serve as an engine to be able to then gain popularity and interest in the home market, where it's not just a trend, but this is something that's going to last. We've got the ab belts that shock the body. Well, NASA did research on that and found that electrical stimulation is wonderful. You can contract the muscles, but if you want to maintain your muscle mass, you have to have the voltage cranked up high enough that it's uncomfortable or painful. So if you're into it, great. If not, it's no good. I've talked to a number of people that have they've got those, they've been prescribed them, they've brought these devices home for electrical stimulation. They've used them once and thrown them out because they said this sucks. Okay, Dennis? Yeah.
You mentioned the bone loss right away, and then I didn't hear you really address that later on. Does this help with the bone loss?
Now, we've only done limited studies on bone. And so the idea is that the stimulus is exactly what the bones need. Others have done vibration studies on vibrating platforms and shown improvements in both the lumbar spine and the hips using the same vibration parameters we're using. So we expect to see the same results with our device. We've done studies looking at markers of bone turnover, and we saw that we shook things up. People's numbers were fluctuating. So this was in a sedentary population of long-term care residents that had been in a nursing home for 2 to 6 years. So, and we did 3 months prior at baseline and then 3 months after. So we could definitely see that things were happening.
Would that affect your FDA approval if you start to look at that?
Class 3, yeah. Every bone stimulation device is a Class 3 product. So our goal is, over time, to carry out the research, to be able to show that. And research is a huge emphasis of ours. We're so interested in it that we're actually looking to partner up with institutions for doing research, as well as other companies that are in our space, to even get a nonprofit organization focused around dysmobility syndrome, which our UW-Madison collaborator actually coined that phrase. Dysmobility syndrome is the kind of age-related progression of muscle loss, functional decline, and bone loss as part of the same progression. By quantifying it as a syndrome, all of a sudden you can get federal dollars behind that to help support the cause. And so we're looking at, from the commercial side of it, what can we do to help contribute to this? To get all of the research out there. This VibeTech fits right into it, but we're not the only ones that are focused on the needs of folks like this. If we can grow a whole industry and do it right, I am very supportive of having other collaborators to work with on that. But we do have some folks that we've talked with, top name research institutes, where we're looking at doing some bone fracture healing studies where you need fewer patients to show clinical efficacy. And then, so we're talking tens to dozens of patients versus osteoporosis studies that might require hundreds to thousands of patients.
Have you looked at SBIR funding to help with that?
And that was our NIH funds, where it was a SBIR grant that we got. So we are looking at some other options, and I've got a few collaborators that are looking to pursue some various things. And for instance, we're looking at wound healing as an SBIR application for this technology, and developing some imaging techniques to look at indirect measures of blood flow to regions. And so, because it's technology development in addition to the clinical research, to kind of prove out some very kind of early stage work, I think that the Small Business Innovation Research Program is a great
You should talk to Rick Moss, the Associate Dean of Research at the med school, too.
I will definitely do that.
They have a fund that could help you amplify that stuff.
All right, thank you very much. And we are working with the UW system on all of our patent matters. So WISIS is basically WRF's.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of that, but Rick Moss might be a useful contact.
Okay.
I'll send his contact information when I connect with you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just to add a comment on that, we had an instance, of a young man who tore his Achilles tendon, while running, and he started to use our device on the same day that the Achilles was reattached, long story short, his recovery time, back to full athletic recovery, was shortened by 4 to 6 months. So that's the impact there.
Okay. Can I science nerd for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. First question, is the technology appropriate for people who cannot bear weight? If someone is totally and permanently disabled that they can't stand on their own power?
Yeah, so we do like to follow the doctor's guidelines, and so there's toe touch weight bearing. So there's no weight bearing, there's toe touch weight bearing, and there's partial weight bearing. So no weight bearing, you're not supposed to apply any pressure, according to the doctor. Toe touch weight bearing, it's up to 20% of your body weight. Partial weight bearing is up to 50% of your body weight. So if you're going with what the doctor says, you're not supposed to apply any pressure, and we do apply some pressure. But we can have that pressure be so low that it's no different from having their legs just resting right up on something under the weight of their own legs. So that being said, I don't have any personal issues with people that have no weight-bearing requirements. But still getting approval from a doctor to do so.
Sure.
And letting them know a little bit more about the science of it. That just, with me resting my legs, it's about a 35-pound load just sitting there putting my legs on a foot plate. So people are going to get that no matter where they're at. So there's always going to be some loading. And when it's done in a non-upright position, where you're seated, it's safe, there's no risk of falling. That's another reason somebody might have a weight-bearing restriction, is because of the risk for falling.
Right.
So we get rid of that.
I'm thinking about patients with like multiple sclerosis or spinal cord injuries where the lack of mobility is related to the nerve fibers as much as it is to the muscles.
Yes.
And particularly with your anecdote about the woman who became lucid once starting the treatment, what are the implications for rebuilding neural connections as you stimulate the muscle
And that's where it all
fibers?
starts. What's really nice to see, we did a study that we're still crunching the data from, where we looked at foot sensation. We compared people going through standard physical therapy with those going through physical therapy plus our treatment, where they started with our treatment as the first thing. And they stayed for however long they were in therapy for. It wasn't a set length of time. We had 3 patients that had, out of the 10 points, 5 points on each foot that we assessed, they had no sensation in any of those 10 points. At the end of the treatment period, they regained all 10 points. And most people regained some points. The standard therapy group, nobody regained. It was just, that was a loss. So neurologically, there appear to be some good things happening. The instantaneous pain relief is also really a key factor. Now, I still skateboard. And if I'm trying a 360 kickflip where the board spins 360 this way and it does one twist, normally I can land maybe 1 out of every 10. If I do that after a treatment, I can land probably half of them or more. So it's kind of nice to be able to have the ability, that neurological control, brought right back. I had one cancer survivor that was coming to me for treatments, and in his second week of treatment, he said, "Wow, Jeff, I never imagined this, but I'm walking up and down the stairs without losing my breath, and it's actually easy, and I've regained my sense of physical confidence." So by activating 100% of your leg muscles, you have a lot of redundant musculature that's not normally active. Normally, if you're pushing with all of your might, you're only going to be able to use 60% of your muscle fibers. So this is getting the other 40% awakened. And now they can contribute to sensory as well as the neuromuscular function to be able to produce pushing motion. If you excite all of those muscle fibers and then you have somebody train for whatever it is that they're training for, all of those new muscle fibers that weren't previously engaged are now coming into the mix, and during the next 8 to 12 weeks, the neurological coordination pattern is what's responsible for the gains that you see in somebody's performance. After that, it tends to be the muscle fibers actually increasing in size. So if we can accelerate that neurological coordination and to train people. Maybe it's just to train them to learn to walk again. Maybe it's to train them to be a better athlete. We can do those things with the product.
I think we have time for one more quick question.
All right.
Have you guys done any research on how this might prevent blood clots?
And that's a huge area of interest here. We did a study at UW La Crosse, or just a pilot test, just to see is it feasible to increase blood flow. And we found out that, yeah, blood flow does increase during treatment. During active leg presses with the vibrations, we had a 3-fold increase in blood flow in our N of 1. So I mean, it's not a fully blown study. But we also saw an increase of about 2-fold in doing the passive just vibration contracting the muscles. And then we just did an assessment 10 minutes later and saw that blood flow was still significantly elevated. So I'd like to study how long does